Welcome back to Face the State. I'm Ariana Bennett. Thank you for staying with us. Well, last year was a banner year for fires in the Truckee Meadows, with a new fire sparking practically every day during the peak of the season. So going into this coming season with a bigger population in our area, what can we expect from our fire service? I'm back with Truckee Meadows Fire Chief Charlie Moore. Thank you once again for your time.
Thank you.
All right, so really, I know 2017 was an exhausting year for the fire service, from floods to fires. What was that like for you?
It was nonstop. After the Little Valley fire, we went immediately into atmospheric rivers. We had some 16 that were severe to extreme. We had the floods in Lemon Valley and elsewhere in Washoe Valley. And then after that had mitigated, we started with a very robust wildfire season where we saw about 120 individual wildfires with 4 times the acreage burned than we had in the previous year.
Oh my goodness. Now, looking back on it, were there areas that you identified that you would have done better, things you would have changed, things you're implementing going into this year?
Well, fire chiefs love to talk about defensible space. It's the #1 thing that we need to be able to protect structures, and so we can't talk about that enough. If we have vegetation up against the structure, there's probably very little that we can do to protect that home, particularly when the fire is being pushed by wind.
Right. Now, when we talk about defensible space too, it's more than you'd think, right? I mean, I think, most houses maybe have a little bit, but you need quite a bit, especially if you're on that wildland interface, right?
Yeah, it depends on the type of vegetation around your home. It depends on the slope. It depends on what your house is made of. It depends on the type of vegetation that you have around. So generally speaking, 30 feet is about what we would need on a flat lot. If you're on a slope, you may have to increase that quite a bit.
Now, when we say 30 feet, is that 30 bare feet, like empty feet, or is that you can have living plants and other things in that space?
Oh yeah, we don't expect people to moonscape their yards, so you can have appropriate landscape materials, like for instance, aspen trees have a lot of water content. There's a type of grass that will stop a fire in its tracks. There's all kinds of different plant materials that are appropriate. But sagebrush is one of those that's very, very dangerous. It will burn in the middle of July. Right. It's always dry.
And I mean, cheatgrass also, which springs up everywhere, especially after a wet year.
Cheatgrass is a problem, and in fact, the National Weather Service did a study. And they went back some 30 years, and they said, and their study said that in every wet year, the following wildfire season was a big one for the next 2 years.
Wow. So then that means this season, right?
Yeah, last season and this season, so we may be in for another big one.
Oh man, how are you guys gearing up for that? Are you doing anything differently?
Well, we get ready on planning, but we're doing a program to encourage people to develop their own defensible space and get rid of the vegetation. As an agency, we're hiring more firefighters. We have to get ready for the increased growth. But I would say that Northern Nevada has one of the better mutual aid systems between state, local, and federal partners. The Sierra Front Interagency Dispatch Center can get us resources, aircraft and hand crews from other agencies in a quick way.
That's good to hear, definitely, especially since it was wild every day, something new last season. So you said more firefighters. Is that something you had to fight for in the budget, or is that just natural? As the community grows, there's more money for firefighters?
Well, that's going to be a natural progression as we get more structures, we get more tax revenue, and so we can afford more firefighters. But they're hard to come by. We are now hiring firefighter paramedics. The city of Sparks is doing the same thing, as well as the city of Reno. So in a way, we're all competing for the same candidates. We're going to have to reach out to other states to try to find our candidates for in the future.
It's because that's pretty difficult. I mean, you have to meet a whole lot of qualifications to be both firefighter and paramedic, because it's a designation past just first responder.
It is. It's a very advanced level of training, and we hire smart people, men and women, who are really, really good paramedics. That's 70% of our call volume, so we look for excellent medics.
70% of your call volume medical, which I think is probably a big misconception. I can't imagine people know that.
And this may be interesting to know, only 1/4% are structure fires for us.
Yeah.
In about 10,000 calls. So I think last year we ran only about 65 structure fires. A lot more wildland fires, but predominantly we run medical calls.
Now, but you can't transport patients, right?
We can transport patients in certain circumstances, but REMSA has the franchise to transport patients most of the time. But because the county is on the periphery, REMSA response times can be a little bit extended. So we're like a hub and spoke. We're not the hub, we're the spoke. We're way out on the edge of the county. So it's very important for us to have advanced life support while we're waiting for the paramedic ambulance to respond, because our interventions can really save a life while we're waiting for the ambulance to get there. We're a long way from the hospital in Cold Springs and in Lemon Valley and way down in Washoe Valley. It takes a long time to get back to the hospital.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, now you mentioned some new programs helping people get rid of their green waste. So tell me about that new program.
So it occurred to me when I looked at my neighbor's trash one day. They had this trash bin with all kinds of branches stuck in it. And I said, well, that's the problem right there, is that people want to create defensible space, but there's no place to get rid of it. And your garbage can that you set outside every week isn't big enough to take a lot of the volume. So I tried to match the need to the solution and said that if people bring us their green waste, we'll chop it up, we'll mulch it up, and we'll dispose of it at RT Donovan or some other green waste recycler and make mulch out of it.
Yeah, we actually have some video of this if we want to go ahead and take a look. And you guys just, looks like a bunch of Christmas trees are getting bulldozed. And then, so tell me, who does this and what do you do with all the mulch?
Well, we'll take it to RT Donovan and they'll turn it into mulch into topsoil, so it just decomposes at their facility. But you can see the volume here. We recycled 750 tons in just 2 weekends of doing this program.
So clearly it was something that people were interested in.
We got a lot of great feedback from our citizens about this, and citizens have told us, please, Chief, keep doing this in the years to come.
Okay, and all they have to do is bring it by your stations, or do they have to take it somewhere else?
No, they'll just bring it by our stations, dump it, and we'll do the rest. So we'll announce in the spring what weekends and what stations we're going to be doing this. But we're going to invest in more equipment. What you saw in the video is called a masticator, where it's just a big drum that chews everything up. We have a chipper. We have a burn box that burns big limbs very, very cleanly. And we're going to invest in more equipment. So this is a program that's going to get bigger and better as the years go by.
All right, and it's free for them to take part in? They don't have to pay for it?
It's absolutely free. All you got to do is bring in the green waste. And there's no charge whatsoever. Just dump it, and we say thanks, and we'll take care of the rest.
Okay, well, we've got a couple minutes left, so I would like to ask you, what is left on your wish list? If you could wave a magic wand and get what you wanted to have the best, fire service and first responding, capacity in our area, what would you change?
Well, I would change the way the dispatch system works,
Right.
and we've talked about that. That is absolutely number one, and there's no reason why us as professional agencies can't get there. I think it's the first step before we ever get to a regional fire department, and it's something that we can do now in just a few months, I believe. It may be complex, but so is sending a man to the moon, and we got that done. So this is a lot less complicated. The software already exists. The technological buttons and whistles already exist. We just have to figure out a plan. Okay,
and then anything other than that?
Well, eventually to meet growth, we're going to need more firefighters as time goes on. We have a big challenge out the I-80 corridor with Apple and all the industrial development that's happening there. So we're going to need new stations and more firefighters going forward. But that will come.
Okay, and if people, are very smart and want to be paramedic firefighters, it pays well.
It pays well, and then I'd love to see more fire prevention going forward. I really want a community that's engaged and working with us to mitigate the response, because we can't do it all as firefighters. And I love it when our citizens call and ask questions. Would you come out and look at my lot? What do I need to do to make it safer? That's really good stuff. Yeah,
good to know that that's an option. All right, Chief Moore, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
I sure appreciate it. Okay, well, that is it for this episode of Face the State. But for more information or to see past episodes, you can head to our website. That's ktvn.com. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you next week.